what we announced for Star Wars.
I'm just gonna pause that real quick. I'm gonna read this before we get into it. This video started out as a review for Star Wars Battlefront 2, but as I researched the commercials behind it, I began to uncover a consistent pattern from EA that began as early as 2006 that has since come to define much of our industry as much as other publishers have sought to recreate EA's success. This is a story of Andrew Wilson's Golden Goose and how it saved EA but cost us AAA gaming in 2018. Let me catch all the way up on these donations first, okay? McConnell's funniest, most entertaining person on Twitch. Half the money you make should go to him, including all of this donation. McCool in chat. Thank you very much for $5. We need to do that computer fundraiser at some point. Maybe we can do that next week during the media share. Hasman. Yeah. I've not been watching your content for too long. This is the first stream I caught live. I want to thank you for your content as a whole. It's helped me through a rough time. Thank you very much, Jade Bear. Jade Boar. It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Battlefront 2 is we're going to do the same thing. We're going to give all of the core base content over the life of the product to players for free, but then let them engage in a live service that brings the community together, keeps them together, and gives them reason to keep engaging over the long term.
And charges them.
Well, they can invest time or they can invest money. It's completely up to them.
There's a Latin phrase that goes post hoc ergo propter hoc, which means after, therefore, because of it. It's a logical fallacy that suggests that if X came after Y, then Y must have caused X. So if I clap my hands in Sydney and then there's an earthquake in Venezuela or whatever, I could say that I caused the earthquake because I clapped my hands. This is, of course, ridiculous, and it's the perfect example of why causality and sequence aren't always linked. I raise this because there's a narrative doing the rounds at the moment that Overwatch is to blame for popularizing the modern-day loot box, but this idea just isn't factually correct. It rests on the premise that publishers care what is popular, and since Overwatch is popular and it had loot crates in it, then therefore that's the reason why all these publishers are now inserting loot boxes into every game imaginable. Here's the thing though, publishers don't care what's popular.
Aussies
they
are
care
so
what's
smart,
profitable. If they cared about what was popular, they'd all be making The Witcher 4. Instead, we get this.
So that's a loot chest, and with that you're able to use those bows. You could crush them for more Mirian. We also can go to silver war chests, and we're going to actually buy a bunch of these and open up a lot of these.
There's a lot of money to be made here, but publishers aren't following Overwatch, they're following something else. What if I told you that Overwatch are actually making very little from the sale of their loot boxes? What if I told you that the history of the modern day loot box predates the mobile apps that so many people claim to be the genesis of this whole mess? And what if I told you that this entire history can be traced directly back to the man that now leads Electronic Arts, its CEO, Andrew Wilson?
There he
is. It's a fascinating story that's taken me weeks to sift through and to understand, but now that it's all laid out in front of me, it creates a crystal clear picture of where this all began and where it's likely to go next. But to begin to understand it, I had to go right back to the beginning, and that took me to a place I never would have expected: the soccer pitch.
EA Sports presents FIFA International Soccer, the most realistic soccer game ever created for the PC.
That's true.
Experience the unique three-quarter overhead perspective that provides the users with the best view of a soccer field ever designed for a video game.
There's lots of popular sports around the world, but nothing comes close to football. It's truly the world's game in every sense of the word. It's the national obsession of all but a handful of nations, and as such, the demand for football video games has been there for pretty much as long as there's been video games. In 1993, EA had acquired exclusive rights to the FIFA license, allowing them to create what would forever remain the official video game of the world's game. It was an incredible catch, and still to this day, FIFA comprises 26% of EA's total revenue. FIFA is the rock on which EA is built. But believe it or not, there's actually another game to which modern-day EA is now even more indebted. Developed by EA Canada, the UEFA Champions Football series was essentially a clever marketing trick from EA to cash in on their football licenses. Instead of just selling one football game per year, they could use the core game engine to sell different games under different licenses, and trial different game modes or features in different titles to see which ones resonated most with players. But ultimately, it was the same game every year, it just had a slightly different label on it and one or two additional new modes and features. The 2006-2007 edition of UEFA introduced a new game mode called Ultimate Team. A fascinating post from one of the original creators of the system can still be found on IGN's forums, and in it, Chris Coates, who was the associate producer at the time, explains that his team had developed an entirely new concept that was essentially a collectible card game. But I'll let this video from 2007 explain how it all works.
Okay. UEFA Champions League features a brand new mode which enables you to play football as never before. This new mode enables you to collect and trade virtual player and gameplay cards to build a team. You can then take your team to the pitch to compete for UEFA Champions League glory. So how does it work? In UEFA Champions League, the user will be rewarded with credits for their play throughout the game. Credits will be used to purchase packs of cards to build, train and maintain your ultimate team. Packs come in 3 varieties: bronze, silver and gold. Any card available in the game can be found in any type of pack.
Here we go.
However, the better pack, the more likely you are to find the better cards.
The fundamentals of the modern day loot box were all here. You'd open it up to receive unknown items,
FIFA,
some of which could be useful to you and some of which could be completely useless. And it was heavily baked into the core progression system of the game, since you were constantly hoping for the right cards to drop, because if they did, you could build the perfect squad and steamroll your opponents. It wasn't pay to win at this point, because you couldn't actually pay real money for the cards. They all had to be earned by some means, but that would of course come later. The parallels to collectible card games like Magic the Gathering or Pokemon cards are really clear here, but there's an important difference. In the case of collectible card games, you're purchasing an actual product, cards. Some of these are more valuable than others, but they all have some inherent real-world value.
Hey, that's
the
what I
difference
said.
with Ultimate Team's cards is that they have no intrinsic real-world value. You could buy a pack of Ultimate Team cards and you're stuck with them because you can't take them out of the Ultimate Team ecosystem and sell them for real money or trade them for other goods. It's a closed economy that the manufacturer, EA in this case, has complete monopoly over. So they're able to set the rate at which rare cards drop and completely stop the resale of any of those drops outside their own managed economy. It's the closed economy factor that makes the video game loot crate so damn lucrative. But it wasn't lucrative for UEFA at the time because they weren't charging for cards, and the UEFA series wasn't really a big revenue spinner for EA. FIFA was the preeminent EA football game, and when the UEFA license was up for renegotiation in 2009, EA let go of the rights in favor of focusing more on the FIFA brand. It was at this point that someone suggested that the Ultimate Team mode should be retained and introduced into EA's flagship title. A developer named Matt Pryor, who would later go on to become FIFA's creative director, and he still is today by the way, wrote a design paper for it and gave it to his executive producer. To that point, writes Polygon, Ultimate Edition had been losing money in the UEFA games, but that was because they were only looking at the unit sales of the UEFA games. They weren't thinking about the potential revenue from microtransaction purchases of card packs. It was the executive producer of FIFA 2009 who realized what Ultimate Team could one day become, and he greenlit the mode into the next version of FIFA.
Wow. What a motherfucker,
That executive producer's name was Andrew Wilson. The man who only 4 years later would go on to become the CEO of EA and who still leads it today. I want to pause for a moment here just to make clear how critical this moment and Andrew Wilson is in all of this. Everything we've talked about so far predates the mobile game boom that ended up making people billions, and Team Fortress's loot boxes, and all of it. It just predates all of it. This all happened before any of that was going on. The loot box we know and fear today found its roots in a soccer game mode that would have been cast aside had Wilson not seen the microtransaction potential
soccer is
within
the problem.
FIFA's Ultimate mode in 2009
I knew it, dude. Soccer's the worst thing ever.
Boxes immediately.
Fuck soccer, dude.
It was the first pay-to-win game on any console. Since the more you spent, the more powerful your squad became. The core progression system within the game revolved around what were essentially loot boxes. And it wasn't the cosmetic loot boxes that would be popularized by Team Fortress or CSGO or Overwatch. This was the Wilson loot box, as I call it, which was pay-to-win and hard-baked into the core progression system of the game. And it was unquestionably a form of gambling, since you had no idea what you were going to get when you laid down your hard-earned cash. The goods you received had no intrinsic value outside the game environment, and you had no ability to recoup your money once it was gone. The Wilson loot box model worked. Ultimate Team became a successful and respected business model inside EA almost immediately. So much so that during the development of 2012's Mass Effect 3, BioWare developers worked closely with FIFA's developers to implement the first paid loot boxes outside of a FIFA game. Loot boxes had certainly existed before this time, such as in the Borderlands series, but Mass Effect 2 let you pay real money for them. One ex-BioWare employee cited examples of people spending upwards of $15,000 on Mass Effect loot crates, so clearly the system had an appeal to a certain type of player, hungry for a competitive advantage in Mass Effect's horde-style multiplayer. In the background, FIFA Ultimate was becoming a huge success. In 2010 and 2011 combined, FIFA Ultimate made $100 million. By 2013, it was $200 million. By 2014, it was $380 million. And by the way, this wasn't the sale of FIFA, this was just the Ultimate Team add-on where people had to buy packs of cards. $380 million in 2014. The numbers kept going up and up. The Ultimate Team model soon spread to all other EA Sports games and was deeply ingrained into EA's emerging mobile ecosystem as well. In March 2016, EA's chief financial officer told investors that Ultimate Team was bringing in $650 million a year. By March of 2017, this year, Ultimate Team had grown to an $800 million business for EA. By far and away the most successful implementation of microtransactions in any premium game in history. With this amount of money flowing through, the success of...
Pause this real quick. We've got somebody just donated and people think Star Citizen is bad. Can you play Star Citizen?
Huh?
Can you play Star Citizen?
I don't know. I've never even heard of it.
You can? I thought that was a game that was in development for 10 years.
Is it still paused?
Yeah.
I just want to take a second, okay? Right now. Because you've got a lot of viewers.
Okay.
And eventually, inevitably, someone out there watching the stream right now is going to become a developer of a game or some type of shit like this. They're going to work at a major company.
Probably.
I just want that person or these people to know, don't do this, okay? You are destroying gaming. You will be a piece of shit. Your life is going to be fucking empty. You will be an empty shell.
You're going to be like the guy on the screen right here.
Don't do this.
And that thing right there, that's the $sign. And all these people are just the kids that you're going to convince to buy your microtransaction things right here. And those are the fanboys that are waiting to suck your dick after you do it. Let's play it.
Pay to win was permeating every part of EA. Recently, it's emerged that the creator of Plants vs. Zombies, which was acquired by EA when it acquired PopCap in 2012, pushed back on the inclusion of pay-to-win elements in the sequel of the game. The rumor that he was fired for this isn't quite true, but it does point to a clear desire on the part of EA to push toward pay-to-win mechanics as early as 2012. The disastrous Dungeon Keeper app released in 2014 was another example of EA going the whole hog on pay-to-win, and the backlash mirrored the one that we're seeing today due to how beloved the classic Dungeon Keeper series was. Jim Sterling, who then wrote for Escapist, said of the new EA Dungeon Keeper, classic Dungeon Keeper.
This is no time to be stingy. Spend a few more gems and instantly rush the building of this trap.
Oh my... No.
Oh my, that's disgusting, dude.
That is disgusting, dude.
What the fuck? I mean, come on. It's no time to be stingy. Yeah, give the company more of your money, 12-year-olds. Go get your mom's credit card right now.
Series was. Jim Sterling, who then wrote for Escapist, said of the new EA Dungeon Keeper, a cynically motivated skeleton of a game, a scam that will take your cash and offer nothing in return, a perversion of a respected series twisted by some of the most soulless, selfish, and nauseating human beings to ever blight the games industry. It's good to know that Jim Sterling hasn't changed a bit, and thank God for him. In 2014, responding to the Dungeon Keeper controversy in an interview with Eurogamer, CEO Andrew Wilson said some things which I'm certain could be copy and pasted into his future interviews on the subject of Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Oh, here
He
we
said
go.
this: "You have to be very careful when you reinvent IP for a new audience that has a very particular place in the hearts and minds and memories of an existing audience. And when you think about any business model, premium, subscription, free-to-play, value has to exist. Whether it's $1, $10, $100, or $1,000, you have to deliver value and always err on the side of delivering more value, not less."
$1,000? Wait,
These
what?
were empty words. EA did not learn the lesson of the Dungeon Keeper fiasco because they could see the revenue pouring in from pay-to-win elements of their games. Pay-to-win was deeply ingrained into the EA culture. A perfect example of this was the recent closure of Visceral Studios, which was working on a single-player focused Star Wars game under the leadership of Amy Hennig, who had previously headed up the Uncharted series. That was looking like a really fantastic, just great Star Wars game, and as she was presenting it to the EA board one day, they asked in response, "FIFA Ultimate Team generates $1 billion a year. Where's your version of that?" If you're asking those sorts of questions about a single-player Star Wars adventure, then it indicates that the rot has set in fairly deeply. But the revenue being generated from pay-to-win microtransactions by EA was fairly addictive for a very important reason. The revenue being made on the sale of Wilson-style loot boxes across their games was extremely cheap. On a regular product, say Battlefield or Mirror's Edge, EA needs to spend around 40 cents to make $1 of revenue, so they have about a 60% margin there. But with the Ultimate Team product and their related mobile products, they only needed to spend 20 cents to make the same dollar. It's literally twice as good from a margin perspective to generate revenue through microtransaction loot boxes than it is to develop actual games, and EA have certainly noticed this. There's a mantra doing the rounds at the moment that publishers need to monetize in this way with loot boxes because development costs have gone up so much. So you might be surprised to know that EA's development cost today is lower than it was 9 years ago.
What?
It peaked in 2009 and has continued to trend down since then. If you adjust for inflation, EA this year spent $300 million less on development than they did back in 2009.
Well, now
the
they have
idea
pool
that
tables.
development costs are skyrocketing and that publishers just have to do this is a bald-faced lie. And it's a little more than ironic that at a time when developers like EA are claiming rampant development costs are the reason that they need loot boxes, they're in fact spending less on development than they have in nearly a decade, and what they are spending
goes back to, like, people
yields
not getting paid
higher
enough.
return than ever before. The impact of all of this new form of cheaper revenue on EA has been nothing short of transformational. When Andrew Wilson took over as CEO in 2013, EA had made $3.4 billion in 2012 from the sale of games and $728 million from the sale of microtransactions and season passes. By March 2017, EA was making $2.6 billion from the sale of games and $2.2 billion from the sale of microtransactions and season passes. If you adjust for inflation,
Soon
EA are
make
making
more from
30% less from the
microtransactions than the
sale
actual
of
game.
actual games today and 280% more from the sale of microtransactions and season passes. The shift in their revenue composition has taken them from a profit of $76 million in 2012 to a profit of $976 million in 2017. That's an increase in $900 million profit. And here's the kicker. We know that $800 million of their digital revenues exist in just one product, Ultimate Team. EA are not alone in this shift. Activision Blizzard and Ubisoft both now make more money from the sale of microtransactions and season passes.
It's that one guy, dude. The one guy thinks it up. He's the CEO, and suddenly everything changes. But I'm sure it's just a coincidence. The one guy. Wow.
Than they do from the sale of actual games. But the key difference with those publishers is that their revenue model is far more diversified and far more reliant upon actual IP. Activision Blizzard in particular has an incredible stable of IP with its Blizzard franchises, Call of Duty, Destiny, Skylanders, and now the entire suite of King's games, which actually aren't based on gambling per se, but are more based on the sale of extra lives to progress to their more challenging Match 3 levels. Activision's nose certainly isn't clean in all of this, but as a business, It's had a huge number of commercial successes outside of the gambling-based loot box space. The example that's constantly brought up in relation to Activision's loot boxes, though, is Overwatch, which many seem to think started the loot box fad we are currently in now. But the myth that Overwatch is making vast sums of money from the sale of its loot boxes is very easily debunked. If you look at Activision's annual reports, you can see that Blizzard's revenue grew $900 million in 2016, and almost all of that is explainable by the retail and digital distribution sales of Overwatch and the new WoW expansion, Legion. There literally isn't any room left on their profit and loss statement for rivers of money flowing in from Overwatch loot boxes. Something I don't find remotely surprising, given that Overwatch loot boxes provide cosmetics only and are actually pretty easy to earn from just playing the game. Now, I'm not defending them, but I think this is a really key point we need to understand so that we know what the true enemy is here.
That makes sense.
Overwatch loot boxes in the games industry are small potatoes. I don't like it, and I do think it's exploitative because I'm ultimately gambling for a skin rather than paying for what I want. But it's a very innocuous form of the loot box that poses no real threat to our industry. It's easily ignored because the game isn't affected in any way by its existence.
That is true.
But the Wilson loot box, the one that is pay to win and baked into the core progression system of games, that one poses an existential challenge to our industry because, as I said earlier, publishers don't care what's popular, they care what's profitable. Last year, two things happened. The first was that Overwatch released, selling nearly 25 million copies by the end of the year. And the second was that CFO Blake Jurgensen of EA announced that FIFA Ultimate was making $650 million a year on gambling-based loot boxes. This year, we didn't see an explosion of Overwatch-style loot boxes that provide only cosmetics and can be easily earned. We saw an explosion of Wilson-style loot boxes, boxes that provide tangible power and benefit to the player. That's why I think the argument that Overwatch caused this mess is false. It started when publishers saw how much money EA was making from Ultimate Team loot boxes, not when publishers saw how many copies Overwatch had sold. And the corrosive impact of the Ultimate Team product is easy to trace from its roots to the very heart of the Star Wars controversy we're now engulfed in. In February 2012, only a short time after the impact that FIFA Ultimate Team was having was being felt throughout EA, their label's president, Frank Gibbo, gave an interview where he said that EA were looking to export learnings from FIFA Ultimate Team to not only other sports games, but to their shooting.
Export learnings. I love how they talk around it, man.
It's disgusting.
Export learnings.
It's disgusting.
An authentic Diablo experience.
And driving categories as well. That was 5 years ago. In March this year, the Chief Financial Officer of EA, Blake Jurgensen, gave an interview when discussing the recent announcement that Ultimate Team was an $800 million business for EA. And in that interview, he said this: like Battlefield or Battlefront, our Star Wars game, which are very similar in the depth of play, we can possibly add a similar mechanic to that. He's talking about FIFA Ultimate Team. We spend a lot of time thinking about it, not for tomorrow, but over the next couple of years, you're going to see a lot more of that in our portfolio. We wouldn't have to wait as long as Jurgensen predicted to see the impact of these discussions. With their sports lineup already fully saturated with Ultimate Team style monetization, EA turned to their remaining portfolio for 2017, Need for Speed Payback and Star Wars Battlefront. Both of these games featured the same Wilson style loot boxes that made Ultimate Team so successful. Players could buy packs of cards to improve their stats and give them a competitive advantage. And since Star Wars Battlefront was a PvP game, the system was straight up pay to win. And to ensure that players were motivated to spend, the grind towards earning the necessary currencies for free was turned up to absurd levels, completely ruining both Need for Speed and Star Wars for people unwilling to buy Wilson loot boxes. This tactic was not new. It was honed with years of practice in EA's Ultimate Team product. The backlash for this has been catastrophic for EA, but personally, I'm uninterested in the drama and the downvotes on Reddit and the mainstream press coverage of the saga. I'm interested in the recent announcement from 3 nations, Belgium, the USA, and Australia, where their gambling regulators all determined that they considered loot boxes to be a form of gambling, and they would pursue regulation in relation to loot boxes over the coming months. Now, I wrote this section that you're hearing now about a week before this video went live, before the responses from the governments were made public. I wrote this then, and I believe it even more now. In my view, EA as a company is overvalued because it's exposed tremendously to regulatory risk from its golden goose, the Wilson loot box. Its entire profit and loss success over the last 5 years has rested on what is essentially in-game gambling, and I'm almost certain that games with loot boxes in them will soon come to be regulated and taxed as a form of gambling.
Not wrong.
And the reason I think this is very simple.
I fucking hope so.
Governments love taxing vice. It gives them more revenue to play with, and they get to tell the public that they're doing them all a favor while they're doing it. It's win-win from a political standpoint.
Are we the bad guys?
Wait, what?
Because, like, we want them to tax it. I'm like,
Yeah, but if you don't pay taxes, who's gonna build the fucking roads? We need taxes.
I'd rather
Taxes
have
are-
roads than ultimate teams. You're right.
Taxation
And it's a dead
is
set slam dunk when
100%
children are
theft.
involved like they
But
are
if you
with
do
loot
not
boxes.
have taxes,
now I wrote that a week ago,
nothing will
and a
get
few
built,
days ago,
okay?
a Hawaiian
All right.
politician came out and said this.
Hawaiian.
We are here today to ensure future protections for kids, youth, and everyone when it comes to the spread of predatory practices in online gaming.
Oh,
and
shit.
the significant financial consequences that it can have on families and has been having on
This
families.
guy's young
around
enough
this
to actually
nation.
understand what he's talking about.
This game is a Star Wars themed online casino designed to lure kids into spending money. It's a trap.
Damn.
We're looking at legislation this coming year which could prohibit access or prohibit the sale of these games to folks who are underage in order to protect families, as well as prohibiting different kinds of mechanisms in those games.
This
Wow.
is a AAA title that's being released by the world's largest gaming studio, and it has the most popular intellectual property in the world attached to it, and it's marketed squarely at children. Some of you folks who are a little older may remember a character by the name of Joe Camel. He's not around anymore, and
Oh, 'cause
we
he
didn't allow
died
Joe
from
Camel
lung cancer,
to
right?
encourage your kids to smoke cigarettes.
That's right.
And we shouldn't allow Star Wars to encourage your kids to gamble.
I think the combination of regulation plus the overwhelmingly negative consumer sentiment associated with Wilson loot boxes will soon catch up with EA, a publisher that has only one major new IP in the works, Anthem, and has a better chance of closing down a studio than seeing it flourish to become the next Naughty Dog. In the last 12 months, EA has destroyed the Mass Effect IP, the Need for Speed IP, the Star Wars Battlefront IP, and closed one of the great development studios of our time, Visceral Games. During
Wow.
this time, their stock price has increased from $80 to $107, a 33% increase despite not having one meaningful success this year. On the 9th
I
of May
wonder how that
2017, EA announced its financial results from the previous year, and in that one day, their stock price rose 12% because
Contrast
EA was
that with
able to
Blizzard.
announce that Ultimate Team is now an $800 million product. There were literally no other successes to point to, and yet their price went up 12%. Wall Street believes that EA as a company is 30% more valuable now than it was a year ago, and if that isn't proof that Wall Street doesn't know shit about video games, then I don't know what is. Only this week, a Wall Street analyst claimed that gamers were overreacting to the Star Wars incident, saying that we were in fact undercharged. He suggested that if we all bought
What?
the base game for $60 and then spent $20 a month on loot boxes, we'd be getting a good deal, leaving out completely the fact that we actually don't know what we get in loot
What
boxes.
the
and it
fuck?
can be
What the
complete
fuck,
trash every
dude?
time we lay down that $20. You really can't make this stuff up,
Wow.
unfortunately. So here's what I think happens next. I think that governments around the world will come to regulate loot boxes as a form of gambling, and that publishers
I
will
agree with
begin
that.
removing them in all but the most specific of circumstances due to both regulatory implications, but more importantly, because it's clear that gamers now hate these things, and publishers are unlikely to want the stink of loot boxes associated with their games.
Gamers
Publishers
unite.
will find ways to monetize their games further, but I don't think that paid loot boxes will be one of the ways that they do that. I strongly believe that Overwatch will be one of the first to abandon paid loot boxes, since the revenues flowing from them are low for Blizzard, and the true value of the Overwatch IP is its appeal to all ages. Just as Disney don't want Star Wars and gambling in the same sentence, so too will it be for Blizzard and Overwatch.
Oh, that's
I also
actually
believe that
wow.
Andrew Wilson will not long remain as the CEO
big.
of
I
EA.
never even
It
thought
was
of
the
it that
Wilson
way.
loot boxes that he rescued back in 2009 and introduced
Yeah.
into FIFA, and the one that he shepherded through the company over the last 5 years that got EA to this point. In their entire
What a
time
cunt.
since his appointment as CEO, EA has delivered one new successful IP, Titanfall, and that was developed by Respawn Entertainment
said
before
successful.
EA had even agreed to publish the game. Where other publishers have significantly expanded their
What?
IP portfolios over the last 5 years, EA has only left a trail of destruction behind it that does not position them well for the future. How Wall Street does not see all of this is completely beyond me. New leadership is required at EA if it's ever to become a company that is actually player-focused and actually interested in making great games. Andrew Wilson is not the CEO to deliver on that vision, and the sooner the board of directors move on this, the better. Because soon, all of this is going to become a significant financial challenge for EA. The one saving grace for this company that's seen its share price rise from $14 in 2012 to $107 in 2017 is its Wilson loot boxes. And they're now under investigation by sovereign nations around the world, and
so
consumers
funny to me,
everywhere are
man.
now aware enough of these tactics to begin to push back on them. I do not buy the defeatist rhetoric that loot boxes are here to stay. People said the same thing about cigarettes, but we push back on those too, and smoking rates in most developed nations have never been lower. I think the same thing will happen to Wilson loot boxes as well, and when they do, I think that EA will have very little to fall back on. Good, strong IP is the lifeblood of this industry, and EA has very little of it left. I can't see a future for such a company when they cannot rely on gambling revenues to sustain them.
Shit. Yo, this Star Wars thing is fucking ridiculous. You literally buy the guns that you need to use and the characters that you need to play, and it does more damage?
Yep.
And you have to spend money on this shit?
Yep.
Wow. Let's see where EA stocks are at right now. Okay, let's take a look. EA stocks. Let's look at 5 years. Boo! Oh boy. Oh boy. Wow.
What happened? What happened?
I don't know. Maybe governments are making it illegal for them to market their gambling services to kids.
Wait,
That's just
are they
too bad.
Where are they at? The lowest point they've been at since 2017?
Yeah, let's see. Right here? Yeah, about 2017. All the stock market is down? Well, let me see. Let me look at Blizzard stocks, okay? So this is what happened with EA. All right, Blizzard.
Can you check Mizkif stocks?
No, I don't think I can. Let's see. Is this working? Oh, it's like still loading. Give me a second. It's because of Diablo 3. Yeah, that doesn't look good either. Let's see. When did that happen? October? Yeah, that went down a lot. What are other companies? Let's see. Electronic Arts. I don't know how to pronounce Ubisoft. Okay, Ubisoft. Okay, there we go. 5 years. Yeah, it looks like they're all down, actually. Maybe it's not because of the loot boxes. Because if they're all going down at the same time, unless...
CD Projekt Red.
Okay.
Those are the people that tweeted at you.
Okay, let me take a look. It's loading right now. 1 year.
Is that the right one? I don't think that's
but
it.
it hasn't been out that long. That's why. Because the lowest one is September 2017. Riot Games. Okay, let me look at Riot Games. Okay, it's not really working there. All right, Rockstar. How about that? Rockstar. Okay, that one's not working either. Okay, let's see. Valve. Okay, that's not even happening. Let's see. Bethesda. Okay. I can't spell it. Let's see. Yeah, it's not even showing any more of these. It's just the, let me turn this down a little bit.